I think if we listen also to the different statements, it's most likely that it will hold. I think what we've seen in the past week is the capacity from both sides to really be able to hurt the other side. And what we in political science is saying is that this created to some extent what they call a mutually hurting stalemate. And that normally is conducive for talks and ultimately for peace agreement. So I think for at least for the foreseeable future, this agreement will most possibly will be honored by both sides.
But let's look at the basic issues involved here and the basic demands made by both sides. For one, Hamas obviously wants the siege on Gaza removed, i.e. open the entry and exits and so on. On the other hand, the Israelis want a stop to the rockets fired into the southern parts of that country, particularly Sderot and Ashkelon and so on. The question is, can Hamas control all the groupings in Gaza so that they stop firing rockets into the southern parts of Israel?
Yes, well, that is obviously very difficult, but Hamas is the majority group. It has been elected in 2007 as the majority party and therefore the government of Gaza, and therefore they are supposed to be able to control the situation. Now, if there's a relative consensus amongst the different groups, and Hamas is by far the biggest of them, then it is supposed to be able to control it. Very often, this this type of situation starts to escalate. There is maybe one incident, and then the Israelis it retaliates, and then it escalates into a conflict. But if there is an incident, Hamas says it's not one of us, it's one of the smaller groups that we couldn't control, then most possibly the Israelis will not retaliate in the spirit of the current agreement, and then they can contain the damage.
But you see, the other thing is whether or not the Israelis will allow free movement of people and goods in and out of Gaza, because the suspicion by the Israelis is that it is through these checkpoints that people smuggle in weapons.
Yes, but that is the second point of this ceasefire agreement, is that both sides have agreed to this. It's obviously that there is lots of checkpoints, but the difference between the use of checkpoints and the current situation is that no people could move through the checkpoints. I don't think this agreement is saying that the checkpoints will be dismantled, but what is now the breakthrough is to say that there is the movement of people possible.
I mean, ultimately, what we heard in a press conference was the U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton saying the agreement should usher in improved conditions for the people of Gaza and security for the people of Israel. And one wonders, how will this happen, whether it's just too idealistic and that practically it's impossible at this time?
Well, we should not expect it from this agreement. This is purely a ceasefire agreement, which means that it creates space for other forms of agreements to be negotiated. So I think the onus is very much on the U.S. itself. Egypt, that emerged now, is one of the main power brokers in the Middle East, and especially between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and even the Turkish mediation to come forward and to start anew with a process of dialogue. Now, during the first Obama term, there was absolutely no talk, and I think it is very much incumbent on President Obama also to put pressure on the Israelis specifically to proceed, or rather to commence with a new round of talks, which were to some extent terminated after the Clinton period.